start right now.
Yeah, like right now. Yeah.
Hello, hello.
Yeah. Oh, here we are.
Good almost afternoon. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're about to get started because I would like to try and start at least one of my panels on time this weekend. So here we go. Well, hey, welcome in. I know I'm seeing a lot of faces. I've seen a lot yesterday, so this is great. Thank you so much for coming back. That means you like something about this, which is, I'm sure, these other beautiful people right here, which is great. That makes me really happy. So, if you didn't know, this is a panel about leveling up and designing education on Twitch. By a show of hands, how many of you have an education? That should be all of you. That was a trick question.
They couldn't be me.
All right, well, I am going to get us started and let these wonderful folks introduce themselves. So, all right, this is an item. Okay, I'm looking at things, and things always just, they're the best. I love when things work. That's all I'm saying. So, and streaming life is right. So, all right, we're going to go through identifying your educational niche. The niche is not its own category. Designing engaging educational content, strategies for educational streams, how you measure success of those streams, and then we'll have a nice little wonderful conclusion. So, all right, introduction. Hello there. These are your wonderful presenters. I am here.
Nice.
You knew I was going to use that one, right?
What's up?
You knew I was going to use that picture.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay, good.
That's the best.
I got two wonderful pictures from Thor, and then I was like, banana. That's it.
Long lemon, actually. Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
Oh, long, I'm not saying that. Well, hey, hi. I'm RayApollo. I am a campaign marketing manager here at Twitch, and I also write a lot of the creator education for Twitch. And that's part of the reason why I'm here, and I'm going to be your semi-useful moderator for this session. And so I'm actually going to have it go backwards and let who's introduce themselves first, and then we'll go down the line.
Hi, I'm Moohoodles. I've been streaming about a decade, or over a decade, on Twitch. I do science communication on OuterSpace and astrobiology, as well as talk about sharks and conservation and programming and play games from retro to newer things, kind of all over the place. Obviously, education is a huge passion of mine. I love sharing it, and I hope to uplift women in STEM and increase scientific literacy and just nerd out and have a good time.
I love that. I'm Lowco, and I do creator education. So I help streamers learn how to grow and be successful. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I'm just really passionate about helping others. So, I just spread my knowledge on what I've learned as a creator myself and try to help others succeed.
And I'm PirateSoftware, so I've been streaming for about 7 years now, and most of what I do is try and teach people how to do game development on Twitch and show them that they actually can, because most people think like, oh, you have to go to college, you have to do all this type of stuff, you have to be amazing in the industry before you can ever try this, and you don't need to be. Yeah, we live in a time where it's easier than ever before. So that's usually what I do on Twitch, is to show people they can.
See, and you all raised your hands. You all have education, so you can do it. See? Already part of it. We're already doing it. All right. So this is just kind of a general statement. Like, this session will hopefully equip you with some strategies and some suggested practices to help you create some more impactful content that inspires and educates either you and your community. So why don't we get started, shall we? All right. So this is just an opening question for you wonderful people. Why is educational content on Twitch important and beneficial? Not and or, and beneficial.
Do you want to start, Moo?
Sure. I feel like it just uplifts the entire community and helps everyone learn and grow, not just within themselves, but also within their channels and everything. I think it makes it a more equal playing field when we can help educate everyone and everyone is just lifted up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like with Twitch in particular, it's a live format, so it's a really cool way to learn and engage by having, a discussion with others and, just be a part of the learning. It's like very hands-on, and I think that's why it makes it even extra special to do it on a platform like Twitch.
Yeah, I find a lot of time people get stuck in what we call tutorial hell, which is you just do tutorials endlessly and you never really execute on anything. So doing it in a live format, people can immediately ask a question, they can get an answer for it, and that works way better because they're just like, oh, well, I can just try this then. I'm just going to do it right now. I can download this, it's free, I can try it right now. And it sort of breaks that barrier and gets them out of that mode of I'm just going to do tutorials forever and do nothing. I find it to be way, way better for that.
Yeah, and sometimes your viewers will teach you something as well,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you get to learn new stuff, and viewers have interesting fun facts in their heads. So
Yeah, I usually find if somebody asks something, there's a whole lot of the rest of the audience that's thinking it, but they're too afraid to ask. So if you even find any question in chat and you answer that, a whole bunch of people are like, oh man, I wanted to ask that. You know, it's really useful for that, for sure.
So I have, I guess, a tag-along question, because it goes against the saying of, oh, and I'll use math as an example. You don't hate math, you just had a bad math teacher that didn't help you love math. So it's more of a no.
Yeah.
It is very true. No, it's true. And when you think about that, the more as when you leave today, you'll be like, oh no, he was right. I didn't hate math. I hated Mrs. Johnson.
Dude, that's like one of the biggest barriers for programmers too, because they're like, oh, I have to be a mathematician to do that. It's like, dude, you just need to add two numbers together. Most of the time, it's like, oh, I did +1. The box moved, I win. You know, that's it. You know,
Done.
It's not, you don't have to be amazing at math to do that. And the engine handles most of that stuff now, and most engines are like using Godot. You know, it's free and open source. You don't even have to care about cost there. You know, it's great. It's awesome stuff. So, yeah, it handles it all for you.
I love that. And speaking of handling off, so again, it's the person, I feel like, that really does make the content and the education appealing. And it's like dynamic personalities like yourselves that are what keep people engaged. So when it comes to building out this content, not just for them, but for yourselves, like what's a more important factor that you try to focus on when you're doing it? Is it just doing it? Or is there's something else that you're like really trying to get on beyond just helping folks or helping to get them to learn something, to try something different?
I think for me, it's the biggest thing is if we don't have anybody making games now, we're not going to have a bunch of cool indie games later, like at all. There's a generational gap right now of people that are afraid of AI taking their jobs. They're afraid of becoming programmers because of this. They're afraid of making games because of this. And if you have a whole generation of people that fall into that trap and they don't invest in themselves and they don't try these things, we're not going to have cool games. We're not going to have anything. Like, it's just going to be 15 years of void and then us playing the same stuff that's already out. And I don't want that. I don't want that at all.
And helping other creators, learn how to be successful or how to not feel overwhelmed. I think my goals are to really inspire and provide clarity for streamers. We all get stuck at different stages, and it can feel so overwhelming with all the different hats we have to wear. So really, just being able to provide a place where you're going to have that clarity, you feel more confident, and you get to take that on, and in the same way, inspire creators who may not be able to make it without a little bit of guidance, and that just allows for more creativity on the platform because more creators are doing unique things.
I love that, and I completely agree with both y'all. To add to that, I would say I think inspiring other people and letting everyone know that you are good enough and you are worthy and you can do anything you set your mind to. That's a big thing that I follow in my stream. It is never, you can share your passions no matter what, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think it's also really nice to be able to build a community around something you're really passionate about, because for me, I didn't have many friends in real life who were into space, and now I have a whole bunch of them online, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's like one of those big things too. It's like, how many of you guys want to do something creative? And you haven't done it yet. You're like, oh man, maybe one day. Like one day I'm going to do the thing, right? Most of the time I find people just need to be told they're allowed to. And then they're like, oh, wait, I can? I'm just going to go do it then. Yeah. And then you find it's not that scary.
Everyone just needs a little push.
Yeah. There's an audience for everything. So whatever you're passionate about, really that's what you should follow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, what a beautiful transition to our next topic. Wow, look at how that works. So, let's talk about identifying your educational niche when it comes to building this content on Twitch for your community. So, you've already talked about a few of these things. So where would you like to begin? I guess, let's just start at the top. Let's talk about following your passions. So when it comes to choosing your passion, I mean, you both have already you all have identified what your passions are individually. So I would love for you to take that a step further. Because not everybody is able to take their passion and teach other people their passions. It is a skill that you can learn. Funny enough, man, that was a good joke in my head. Anyway, I would love for you to talk about when following your passion and how it translates into teaching other people about it. What is something that you try to avoid doing when you're teaching people about your passion?
I think it's important to remain open-minded and realize that you have things to learn from your audience just as much, right? And everyone has a different perspective on things. there's not one right way to do content creation, for example, and just being able to like listen to others and be open. And, I think when it comes to growing as an educational creator, like just going to where your people are, right? Like identify who your audience is, is it, fellow space enthusiasts? Well, where do they exist on the internet? Go to them and bring your teachings to them.
For me, I feel like passion is everything. I aim to have fun every single time I stream. So if it's kind of like monotone and boring and super pedantic or just like really jargony or something, it's not very fun to me, and I think it isn't fun for an audience to watch either. And that's really like a big takeaway from this panel, from me at least, advice-wise, is like make sure you have fun and follow your passions. I think we've all kind of had a teacher in school at some point in time who's just kind of like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, and I'm gonna teach you math, and this is why you don't like math now.
Mrs. Johnson. Yes.
There you go. But I think we've all had a teacher who stood up there and they've been animated and they've been excited and they've given you real world examples of things and they've been engaging and they've asked you questions and they've inspired you. And that is what I aim to be as well on my streams, at least.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger things too is don't compare yourself to somebody who's already made it. That's a really, really difficult one a lot of people do. And I did the same thing. I've been streaming for 7 years, and for most of that time, I had an audience of like 10, and like, to be real with you, if you start comparing yourself to like, oh man, this guy's got 15,000 views, got 20,000 viewers, whoever it is, it's just gonna make you feel bad because you don't know where the journey took them to get to that point. The only thing you can do is look at where you were like 3 months ago and go, where am I now? How has this changed? Has the viewership increased? Have people looked at my stuff? Have I gotten better explaining a topic? Just compare to your own work and then take in account other people's things and what they're doing, seeing how you can incorporate that into yours. But don't beat yourself up. It's not worth it. It doesn't work that way.
Now, I guess in that vein, because one of our points is researching existing content, and it's because it is good to understand what's out there.
Yeah.
So I guess that does make it really difficult to not compare yourself to it when you want to be aware of what's happening. You don't just want to you don't want to start at the ground floor when other people have already kind of laid the groundwork for that, right?
Yeah. So. Yeah, you do, like for sure. You want to look at it, but you don't. I think a lot of times people go like, oh man, I only had 10 people on. I'm a failure. It's like, no, dude, you had 10 people watching you. That's the top 5% of Twitch.
That's awesome.
What's funny is what's funny Ann said is that a lot of people actually really do not realize that.
Yeah, they don't.
And it's like, no.
I think it's 3 averages, top 5% affiliate. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is like, come on now, like give yourself some credit because that's not an easy thing. And like in reality, like. So, like in a room like this right now, terrifying, by the way, all these people sitting here watching us. Think about that in terms of a stream. You got 10 people sitting there watching you. That's a few people.
Yeah. Especially with everything else online. They could watch anything else. They're choosing to watch you.
That is true.
What you're doing is interesting.
That is true. They could be watching anime, which they should be, but
Why not both?
Why not both is very good.
I would add to that, looking for similar content. If you want to like pioneer a new category, go for it. If there is someone, like if there's no one else doing what you want to do on Twitch, please, please, please bring it to Twitch. Like share your passion, share that specific niche that you have. That stuff gets me so excited because back in my day, the science and technology category didn't exist, and there was like a very, very small handful of people just nerding out, and then eventually that category was made. So don't feel like you need to fit in somewhere or do something, but do know that it might take you a bit longer to grow because there's not already like an established audience around that.
Yeah, and you can actually rally the community around that too. So software and game development category didn't exist. I actually put in a user voice request for it. We campaigned for it for about 8 months because we were in science and technology with you guys.
I remember.
And it was like, game devs are trapped here. It doesn't make any sense, And then Twitch actually made the category, and now there's a place for that. So you can change the platform with doing this kind of stuff, and people will be like, oh, you're a partnered streamer. It's like, no, I think we had an average of like 40 people at the time, and we still managed to get that done. So like, you can do that, 100%.
Yeah, I think on the flip side, like if there's someone doing something that you want to do and you're like, oh, well, I guess I can't move into that space, like there's room for everyone. I was recently talking to a creator who, wants to pivot their content direction, but there's already someone super well known for doing that type of content. And it's like, really what makes you special is you being able to bring your unique personality, your perspective, your way of doing that said thing or that topic. So don't feel like, just because there's one big creator that already dominates that space, like you can't exist as well.
One of my new favorite things to say, this is the internet. This town is big enough for the two of us.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right. So I have a fun little Venn diagram here that I made because, Venn diagrams are all the rage right now. It's
Right
very,
now?
very simple. Wait, what?
They're the rage right now, like
Yeah.
just
Listen,
trending. It's
yes,
trending.
it's
Okay.
trending again. Everything that's old is new. So exactly. So there you go. If this was a hard one to understand, we got other things to talk about. But there you go. Your passion, your expertise, and your audience interests, your ideal educational niche. How about that? Ta-da! All right, moving on.
I will say you don't have to be a total expert to do
No.
educational content. I do not have a
Nobody is.
PhD in astrobiology, and I got my bachelor's in computer science like 2 years ago, so there I am.
And PirateSoftware hit on it earlier. Like, we live in a day and age where information and knowledge is so freely available to us to find that you can learn just about anything. But just, you don't have to call yourself an expert to know things. Like,
Just don't spread misinformation, please.
mis and disinformation are your worst enemy. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't
Yeah,
do that.
and just be okay with like being wrong sometimes. Like
Ooh,
you are going to be
yes.
wrong, and like we are all wrong as humans, right? Like, and I think we can all be better people just by acknowledging that like you misspoke or you changed your mind about something, and I think that just makes you, a more qualified educator if you can do that.
Yeah, I think a big thing for it too is you're creating a space for other people to talk about that subject, no matter where it is, whether you're doing it on Twitch, you're doing it in Discord, like you're making YouTube videos, any of that, you are creating a space for that to happen. And they're gonna learn things outside of what you're teaching them because you've made that area. So like, definitely do that. Go forward with making that area and allowing people to go and experience things beyond what you're able to tell them.
Streams where you're learning together is also just a fantastic time and super good for community building and everything. Like, don't feel like you have to know every single answer. You can, Google something or talk through it or be like, I don't know, and that's totally fine.
Yes, it's true. A fun example I learned yesterday that I'm going to use and tell the story because it was hilarious. One of our good friends, Frisk, was randomly Googling about how to replace the stuffing in her couch for some reason. Don't ask why. I was also very confused. I was like, I don't understand how this train got here, but all right. But in doing so, found out that her couch had legs in the couch underneath that she did not know about, and she had had the couch for like 5 years. And it's all because they decided to learn about couch stuffing on the internet together. And I was like, I'm glad that you learned, but that was such an interesting way to get there.
It's really weird. Yeah.
New content idea just dropped.
I'm telling you. Let's see how things in my house actually work.
When are you guys gonna make a category for that?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't think I want to name a category couch
Seems like
stuffing.
there's interest.
I was thinking it, but I didn't want to say it.
I'll be fine. So yeah, no,
All right, next.
not right now. Click, click, click. Going forward. Anyway. All right. So in terms of like designing the content, I would love for you guys to kind of approach how you go into this. Do you go into a stream saying, I know exactly what we're going to do. We have these goals. This is what we're going to do, and if whatever happens, happens. Like, how do you approach like actually determining what you're going to do on stream when it comes to like, okay, we're going to learn something new today?
I mean, sometimes I have it planned out, and sometimes I'm just like, let me open some articles super last minute.
Would you say concepts of a plan? Sorry, I had to do it. Had to do it, my bad.
I'm going to be honest with you, I don't organize any of that, like at all.
And that's
100% of this, like I'll press play and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing today. Let's find out. Like I'll have everything organized of what I need to work on for the day, but chat brings up things that we need to talk about or something that happened in the news or something that happened in gaming. Like I have no idea what's going on until that goes on. And then they show me and we're like, okay, let's talk about this. We'll spend a couple hours deep diving on it and go for the next thing,
Yeah, I think every creator can benefit from like a little bit of prep. Like sometimes you're like, well, I don't know what I'm going to talk about today, and that even happens happens for people who game, right? So, making a list of maybe topics or what you did over the weekend or questions you want to ask. For me, I think I do the same thing as Moo here, where I'll prep some articles. Some of these take a little bit more time to, prep and understand. And sometimes, your chat kind of guides you, and they bring something up or they ask a question, and now you're going on a whole tangent rabbit hole. So, I think you can, honestly, any type of structure would really work, right? You could do something that's very, very structured and organized. Maybe it's more like a talk show. You could do something that's a little bit more loose and open and interactive, or find a balance that works for you.
Yeah, I think it's just down to what works for you. Like what's the best for you and your community. So I don't think there's a silver bullet there. I really don't.
Yeah. I think with organizing your content, starting with the basics and building complexity is really important. And I know Thor and I definitely do this a lot on our streams because new people are always coming in, coming out. So if we're talking about something, I'm going to assume that people have no idea what an exoplanet is. The majority of the time I bring up an exoplanet. So I'll be like, oh, that's a planet orbiting any other star except our sun, right? So that way, when someone comes in new, they don't feel like they're left out or they're too dumb or something, because I never, ever, ever want anyone to feel that way. So I think that's something good to keep in mind. Just know that people are flowing through, and you might have to kind of reiterate yourself sometimes, but it's also totally fine to go through a PowerPoint presentation and provide that after the stream or in your Discord or something, so people can go back and reference it too. But if you do current news and stuff, you can also link that places for people to see. I think we get into that later in this, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the big one for that is that'll happen a lot in my stream. We'll do an hour-long dive on something, and people will be talking about it, and then people clip the super relevant points, the ones where we made the most revelation on it. And then when someone comes in right after, it's what were we just talking about? And you're like, God damn it, you can't talk about it again for a whole other hour, right? So people they'll start linking the clips, and the community will start kind of handling that, which is kind of nice. So
yeah,
that's
super helpful.
Yeah.
One thing I do also is I have a topic bar on my overlay. So if someone's coming in late, they're able to follow along and jump into it and get that context.
That's smart. That is real smart. Could you imagine if you were a professor and people just kept coming in late and say, "Hey, by the way, what were we just talking about?"
What do you mean imagine?
Oh,
man, I stream 12 hours a day.
Oh my God, I love it.
I think a huge thing as well that I just want to bring up as well, just the other bullet points, is like I said earlier, having fun is the biggest part of having an educational stream. You do not want to not be into what you're doing, and just any stream you do, having fun is super important. And having those interactive elements where you just communicate with your Twitch chat and talk to them and answer questions in real time, and maybe have specific polls or whatever else going on is really helpful for audience engagement. You don't want to be just rambling, info dump. Sometimes I do that, but you don't want to just info dump for an hour straight. You want to make sure that you're talking with your chat and you're answering questions and everyone is engaged and into it. And it's also totally fine to just go completely off topic. If anyone watches my stream, you don't have to be just 100% education all the time. You can go ramble off about food, or what is food like on an exoplanet? How would that be on this other world? Don't feel you have to be so formal and serious all the time. You can have fun in your own ways and have little ADHD side tangents, because that's when your community is oh, I'm awake. What's happening? What is this silly moment? So keep that in mind.
Are you saying a stream can be more than just tangents?
I mean,
it's a whole new world of it, man.
You know?
I think a good term for this is edutainment, and being able to bring an entertainment aspect to your education. How do you not make it super dry, right? Most people aren't coming in to take your stream as a class. I mean, that would be cool if you did that, but I think most people, they kind of are coming to Twitch to unwind and have a good time, and yeah, definitely maybe learn some new things. I think that any creator can bring education to their content, by the way. You don't just have to sit there and teach. If you are a gamer, you can bring education in by doing tutorials or talking about the meta or teaching people, how to get through this raid, right? And that's providing an additional layer of value to your stream. And that gives viewers something to, be entertained by, but also they get to pick up some skills, and that's a reason why people will come back to you.
I would also add that like huge shout out to the retro community because I think they're so good at bringing educational content into their streams by talking about the history of games and like everything else. And it's always like, it doesn't feel like forced education. It's just someone nerding out about the stuff that they're passionate about and about their favorite games and the history behind them and like, oh, well, did you know this stuff happened and blah, blah, blah. And it's so fascinating and so cool. So
I think it kind of always feels that way too. Like it never feels like you're having a class, like ever.
No.
It's always just like, hey, let's talk about this thing. You're excited about it. I'm excited about it. Let's just be dorks for a minute. You know, like that's all it is every time. Yeah.
It's so lovely.
Yeah, that's initially why I started streaming, was just to be able to talk about the video games I love with people who love them as much as I did, genuinely. So it's like, no, that's teaching, but also the speedrunners do the same thing, and it's wild, and I love every bit of it. Like like learning from a speedrunner how they speedrun games is just, to me, it is dumbfounding how good they are at this, and they're so great at explaining it. I love it. It makes me happy.
From the dev side, I love speedrunners. They find weird bugs and exploits that you're like, how did you just do that? Like it's ridiculous, honestly. Like I think the only bugs that I ever fixed from the speedrunning community are ones that crash them, and like that's it. I was like, all right, you phased through that wall, that's yours now, man. Like you can keep it. Like, that's ridiculous, but all right, you know.
Beautiful. I love it. Okay, so I feel like that was a very good pin for that, because speedrunners do break things, but we're not going to break this. All right, so we're going to talk about some strategies, and we've already kind of hit on those, some strategies, but we just kind of want to touch on some more pieces of this. Y'all can see the fancy slides that we put together, so you can have that information as well. All right, so where would you like to start on this slide?
So many options.
Yeah, I know we talked about this a bit already. There's so many different ways that you can bring education into your streams. Like you could read current news, you could talk about something different every week, you could do live problem solving or coding, you could do interactive stuff where you're like, I don't know, science experiments just popped into my head. But like you can do, kind of whatever you feel like.
Yeah, and I think like one of the cool things about, being a creator is you can work with other creators. And in fact, you should, right? Like network and, become friends with people who are teaching maybe the same thing or playing the same type of game, and, bring them onto your stream and you go to their stream. I think there's a tool for that now, Ray, right? It's something about streaming together.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, what is that? Knock, knock.
Yeah, maybe you just drop on in and learn something.
Yeah, there you go.
Dan, you heard me say it. I said it.
Yeah, I think no matter what kind of content you're doing on the stream, because it's a live stream, the focus has to be you have a live audience to interact with. And more often than not, like I'll see people like, oh, we're doing an educational stream. Yeah, but they're not talking to chat. There's no interaction. Like this could just be a YouTube video. Like why have that? So you have to have some kind of an interaction and focus on that interaction and having fun with them. And because then people get more involved. They're more interested in the subject matter. They're going to learn something, or maybe they'll say something and make somebody else learn something. So on and so forth. So.
Speaking about expanding your reach, you definitely popped off from YouTube.
Maybe a little bit.
I think it's important. I think it's important to mention as well that expanding your reach can also be it's within Twitch and also outside of Twitch. I think it's really important to tap into other communities that are into your educational content and let them know that you're live streaming it and are answering questions and are hanging out with everyone. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think seriously, Twitch is probably the best for live content. YouTube's probably the best for static content, but you've also got feeds in from Instagram, you've got stuff in from TikTok. There's so many different areas that you can put short form content. And it's funny because you can use the clip editor on Twitch to make a short. You don't need to pay an editor, you can do it yourself. And then take that, put it up on YouTube, put it up on TikTok, put it up on Instagram. And people are like, oh, I only do it on YouTube. Why? Put it up on the other ones too, because now you have a net that's going to draw all those people back to your live stream. And all you have to do is put a link on it and be like, I'm streaming here, and then that's it. And it's wild to me how effective that was. When we first had the idea to do that and kind of push for it, we had 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. And I was like, hopefully we'll get 15,000 by the end of the year. We're at 2.5 million now, and it's been 9 months. So that was crazy, completely insane.
So exciting.
Yeah, definitely put your stuff on other platforms. Always do. And put it in as many places as you can, because some people were like, well, it only got 10 views over there, so it's not worth it. That's 10 more than you had. And that means an opportunity for 10 new people to find your stuff. So take the chance, just do it, especially because it's one click,
Yeah, you never know what's going to pop off, right? And then I think the nice thing about short form content is you get to provide a new audience a little snapshot of what your stream is like, right? So one of the things that you can think about when you are doing your stream is like, how can you build some purposeful moments in your content that would be worth sharing? Like, for example, like an educational segment or a Q&A session, right? Those could be a lot of different clips. Again, if you're a gamer, but you're doing like tutorialization, like you can plan some of that out on your stream so that you're able to repurpose that content for other platforms, you know, bring in a new audience, and what you have shown them is going to perfectly align with what you actually do because you're taking moments from your stream.
Recently, I've been trying to do like little TLDR summarizations of the articles I read just to get the news out there like right away, because often we break news before other places do. So I've been trying to do those little TLDRs, get them out right away. And also for anyone who comes in while I've been reading the article, then they're like, oh, that's what you were just talking about. Cool. One more thing I do to bring in new people is like go into space-themed game categories and nerd out in it. So if the educational content and niche that you want to do has like any games that are similar, like that is such a good way to bring people into the educational side of Twitch, because they're just there for the game, but maybe they're a space nerd too. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait, you actually talk about this? I didn't know that was a thing. So I would highly recommend doing that as well.
Yeah, I also think if you're putting stuff on their platforms, don't get discouraged if it doesn't catch on. Like, just keep making stuff, and each time you do it, be like, maybe I can make this little piece a little bit better. Maybe I can make that a little bit better. Because what happens is you build up a backlog. And then one day when someone finds your stuff, and maybe they're a new viewer, they're like, whoa, there's like a million things I can watch now. And they could just go through all of your old stuff, watch everything, and be really interested and maybe share it with some other people. So you build up this giant library of things that you've been interested in, and that's super important.
I love that. And I mean, you know, it's one of those things where I tell folks all the time, you're leaving a breadcrumb trail for folks to find the stuff that they really like that you make. And it's okay to just be throwing breadcrumbs everywhere you go. Because, I mean, there's plenty of people to eat them, is all I'm saying. There's plenty of people. I want people to understand, like, the internet is just so big. It is so vast, and there's so many people that you never know what's going to resonate. Like they've all said. So just never, ever, ever be like, well, nobody's going to watch that. You don't know that. Do you want them to not watch it? Okay. Then don't post it. Post it.
And it may even be that nobody watches it yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and that's super important to understand. You could have 0 views now, but who knows what's going to happen a week from now.
Yeah, especially if you make evergreen content. You know, think about what you do that is maybe time sensitive, maybe it's only valuable in the near term, but how can you make content that also would be valuable at any time? Like, what do people search for? What do people want to watch? And, does it make sense to incorporate some of those elements into your stream?
I have a quick question for the group real quick, though, before we move on. Of those categories you have there, is there one that you haven't tried that you would like to try?
Tutorials.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's a big one for me. Because everyone asks me, they're like, how do I build this thing? And then I'll like kind of touch on it. It's like, I should just make a video of this. Let's just tutorialize this.
Yeah, I definitely want to do more discussion panels and incorporate more creators onto my stream, and just be able to like do more round tables and stuff like that. Because again, like everyone has their own perspective on how to do things, and that's so valuable to everyone that's watching.
Same. I also want to do more like interviews and discussion panels and just overall, like, yeah, that stuff.
Boy, do I have the product for you. Anyway, sorry. All right, let's talk about measuring success, because, I mean, in building these things, you do want to make sure what you're doing is successful, because, like, how else are you growing? You want to make sure that what you're doing does work, and you have to actually measure that for you to learn that. So what are some really important metrics that you think are things that people should focus on when they're building out new content that they haven't done before?
I think this is an underrated one, but I feel like chat engagement is so important, and being able to like look back at your content and look at where chat maybe got a little quiet. Maybe that type of content, maybe it was the topic, maybe it was the way it was done, maybe that was something that was not as interesting to your audience. So being able to identify when chat got really involved and really passionate, that's going to be great for YouTube. That's going to be great to maybe think about doing more of that type of content later. And if they got quiet or maybe viewership declined during a segment, it's like, okay, well, maybe this didn't work. Maybe I should iterate on this, try a different way of like making sure that they're engaged. Because again, if they're able to participate, they're more likely to stick around and, like not kind of tune out to what you're saying.
Yeah, I think a big measurement of success is just look at your content from a couple months ago. And if you can look at that and you're like, wow, that sucked. Good, good. Like that's exactly what you want. Like I sucked then. I'm better now, right? And if you, I think a big way to do that is go watch your own stream. Like go watch it. And if you sit there and you're like, God, that is awful, right? Then you can be like, well, I know where it's awful. I know I wouldn't watch me, so let's find out why I wouldn't watch me. Let's see what part of this isn't fun, what part of this is fun. Maybe I could do this better. Maybe I could be more animated when I talk, whatever it's going to be, so that you can be more entertained by watching your own stuff. And if you can do that, then that measurement of success starts moving in the right direction because you're like, hey, cool, this works for me. Maybe it'll work for other people.
Agreed. I don't really have anything else to add except my own personal experiences with all of that. Like I've noticed my like little ADHD side tangents in the articles is when people start like talking more because it engages them. I've noticed when I get really excited and really passionate about it, chat starts popping off a bit more. But if I'm not really into an article or something, I'm like, oh, I don't really care about this news very much. Sometimes I'll just be like, I'm going to post it in chat. You can read it in your own time. And then I'm going to move on to the next one because I feel like it's not good content and it's not very fun. So.
Yeah, I think another big thing of measurement of success, it's not titles. A lot of people will be like, oh, you're not like a streamer till you're a partner. You're not a streamer till you're an affiliate, and things like that. Titles is not success. It is absolutely not, because there are so many times where you can go and build something up and you're like, I'm actually really proud of this. It doesn't matter how many people are looking at it. It matters if you feel good making that stuff and there's a community of people around you that enjoy the thing that you're making, no matter how the size is.
I cannot emphasize that enough. Like it literally took me 9 years to get Twitch partner doing very niche content. Don't ever feel like you are not good enough or that your CCV defines you or anything like that. Like if you like it and you watch the video and you're like, I like this, I think this is actually good, like it is, and you are good enough. So don't like get in your head about it. Compare yourself only to your past self, not other people, and just keep doing it. Keep at it if you enjoy it.
Yeah, set some goals for yourself as well. Set achievable goals. SMART goals is a common term, so that you can actually identify what makes success for you. It's different for everyone. It doesn't have to be, I need like 20,000 viewers to be successful. So, set goals that you feel like you can accomplish in the next month, the next year, and, take some steps, baby steps to get towards those goals.
One thing I love to remind folks is that the internet makes everything seem instant, but it all takes time, and it all is going to take a different amount of time for every person. And so just remember that your timeline is completely different from everybody else. And so just because you see where everybody else is, that's great. Good for them. But what's important is where you are and where you want to be and how you're going to get there. And you have to pay attention to that more than what you see on, I hate to make this joke, the actual timeline. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What do you mean I don't have a 7-year overnight success? What happened?
But that's what it makes it seem like. And a lot of people do get in their head about that. And I'm like, no, you didn't see the come up before that. I mean, before you saw that person where they are now, you didn't even know they existed before. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's so many people that come in and they're like, oh man, did you just start streaming? And I was like, nah. Like I used to do 7 days a week for like 3 years. Like to an average viewership of like 20, right? So like, it is iteration in time. It is all iteration in time. And sometimes that happens faster for people and sometimes that happens slower for people, and you just have to be moving in a direction that you feel comfortable. That's it.
Everyone's journey is different.
Yeah. I think consistency in your content and schedule can help, but it takes time still.
We talked about that in our Path to Partner Talk. We have another one of those on Sunday, if you're interested, by the way. So. All right, I guess next time we have some time for some questions for sure. So,
we can speed run through the rest.
I mean, the last part is fairly easy, So.
Yeah, this is just key takeaways. Sorry.
No, do your thing, girl. Do your thing.
I was just gonna say this is just our key takeaways. If you want to take a photo of a slide, this is the one I would suggest. Just kind of the TLDR of how to go about everything. I was kind of curious if everyone in here could give like your one best piece of advice for creating educational content. For me, I'll reiterate that follow your passion and have fun doing it. If you are like animated and enjoying what you're doing, everyone else is going to be enjoying it, and it's going to be good content. Even if it's the most random, weird, niche thing, like you will find your people over time.
My advice would be to just don't go at it alone. Like Twitch is a community. There are other people out there that love what you're talking about. So, find your community. It's a great way to get support. It's a great way to work together to accomplish each other's goals. And it just makes the experience so much more rewarding to do it with other like-minded creators.
Yeah, I would say anytime you're looking at your own stuff and you feel like, man, I'm not making it, I'm not doing it right, don't look at that as a point of failure. Look at it as a puzzle that you need to solve. Why is this happening? Let's look at the analytics. Let's find out what people are saying in chat. Let's see how I feel about watching my own stuff. And if you can approach it as a puzzle, you'll be like, okay, cool, let's solve this. And it stops being like a negative for you and it starts being a driver.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I love to tell folks is, much like learning, your journey on Twitch is a journey. It does not stop. So you always want to you just always be looking for the next place that you want to take things, because if you decide maybe I'm done, you'll be done. So always keep learning. Always stay hungry for learning, both in just streaming and in general, please.
Have that growth mindset.
Yeah. All right, well, I want to make sure that y'all got some time to ask some questions. This was just a very uplifting and hopeful thing. Y'all can do this. Everything that you're actually trying to do will make a difference. So please remember that. And let's try and get a few questions before they get mad at me for making this go long. All right. Yes, sir.
Hello?
There you go.
Hey guys, what's up? I watch all you guys. My name is Sora Meji. I'm a front-end developer. I do JavaScript and Golang and UX UI. I would like to start doing it on Twitch because to help myself grow. But one question, I think the hard thing is learning. How I guess each of you guys, how do you, if you want to learn something for yourselves and for your community, how would you go about that when you instead of stealing your knowledge? Let's say you want to learn together as a community. I find that's the hardest part because you're struggling. You put yourself out there and you're struggling. How do you guys approach that when you want to learn something?
This is definitely what I do on my streams very often.
Yeah.
I am just super upfront about it. I don't try to act like I'm an expert and I'm smart and I know everything. I'm like, this article is so over my head. I have no idea. I don't know cosmology, but JWST has a whole bunch of cosmology articles, and I'm learning along the way. And I just am very upfront about, I don't know too much about this, but I'm learning, and I don't know exactly what this is. So let's try to research it a bit more from a legitimate source, like NASA website or something, So yeah, I think just being honest about it and just don't stress about it. No, not everyone knows everything. The people in your community are also curious, and everyone's kind of keen to learn together with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're not making a highly scripted YouTube video, claiming to be an expert. You're live, right? You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna trip up, and you're not gonna know things. And I think people usually have a lot of grace with that. So.
Yeah, the only thing you can ever do is give your take on something, and if you have document evidence of hey, no, this is the objective reality, then great, show that. But outside of that, you're no, this feels like this, man. Is it like that? Let's talk,
Right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for all your content. I help people with career coaching and resume reviews, and when you've only got 10 or 20 viewers, how do you help with a repetition of it would be Thor having to answer the same question over and over again, what's a for loop or what's a while loop?
That's every day.
Yeah. But how do you kind of keep the chat engaged when you've only got 10 or 20 viewers and people are coming in asking the same questions over and over and over on your stream?
Honestly, you still do the same thing, answer them. I find a lot of the times people will ask a question, if you're oh, I already answered that, they're they feel discouraged about asking things. They're oh, maybe it'll be somewhere else, maybe I'll look somewhere else. It's kind of become a joke on my stream. It's yeah, I'll just answer the same thing. And then some people in chat are you already answered that. I was yeah, but they asked it again. What do you want from me, right? So ask different questions, So I don't think that's a problem, honestly. I really don't. I think that if there are lots of people asking the same questions and you're sitting at 10 to 20 viewers, it means you have a lot of churn because you're averaging 10 to 20. You don't actually have 10 to 20 the whole time. Right. It's an average. And that means that you're getting a lot of new people, you're getting a lot of exposure to new people. They're able to be hey, I had a good experience here, I learned something, and then they go off and talk about you somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think one thing to think about too is how often you do answer the same question, because it can get a little annoying for someone who is watching you the whole time, let's say. So I think if there's a set of questions that maybe get commonly asked, Thor said this earlier, clip it and keep that as a command, or you have an FAQ doc or something like that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Having like a video that explains a topic that they can watch and learn like outside of the stream, having commands that explain something like what's astrobiology? Oh, here you go. But also reiterating yourself on stream, depending how often you have to do it, could be a really good way to like instill the knowledge in people's brains, because the repetition will have them be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what they're about to say right now, and I know what that is.
I think the funniest thing is I tried to do that. So I made develop.games, website for like being a game developer and like learning that. And there's so many people now that I go there, and it dies. Like the website just falls over.
Like,
We tried putting it behind Cloudflare and it still dies. So I was like, all right, there's nothing I can do with this.
Thanks again for all your content.
Thank you, Ian.
So you can have chatters that ask good questions that drive the conversation forward, but you have the guys that the revolving door of entry level questions that come through are one problem. How do you deal with the viewer who considers themselves an expert in your field that comes in and is toxic by asking questions that are clearly going to have super difficult answers that you can answer without a PhD thesis? How do you deal with those level of chatters that keep coming through?
You mean a heckler?
Yeah, hecklers is a good.
It really depends. Like one of the things that I actually did was I went back and I watched a lot of insult comics. So I started getting a lot of hecklers. I was like, I don't know how to handle these guys. So I watched like Carlin and a bunch of other people, and I was like, okay, how am I going to handle hecklers? Because most of the hecklers aren't going to be like that. Most of them aren't like, here's a highly specific question. They're like, I'm going to say something dumb, and you're going to do something about it, right? And it's like, okay. And I try to make fun of it, just kind of make light of it and then move on, and that's it. It ends up being like a funny moment. It shows the community like, hey, we don't act like that here. It kind of sets the tone for everything, and then you just move on to something else. Yeah, you don't want to dwell too long on it, because then it spirals out.
It feeds the trolls.
Yeah.
I think depending what it is, having good moderation as well, because sometimes people just want to go way off topic. And I think a really nice way to kind of rein it in is like, oh, well, we're talking about this other thing right now, so maybe kind of keep on track with that. But if someone's chiming in like that seems like an expert on what I'm talking about, and it's not like some weird pseudo-science-y thing, then like I think that's cool. Like I'm always going in with skepticism, but we do have trusted members in my community who are like literal professors and like people that work at NASA and stuff. Like there's really intelligent people, but it takes a while to build that trust within the community to be like, oh, you actually have your PhD in heliophysics. Okay, cool. So.
Yeah, you're the community leader, so you're going to be setting the tone, right? So if you're getting uncomfortable or you're getting riled up, or like the vibe is not good, is not there, like just feel free to remove them as well if you feel like they're doing it in bad faith.
Yeah, we ban people constantly.
Yeah.
Like we actually ban people constantly, because there'll be people that come in that just say like wild stuff, and you're like, there's kind of two roads when you find a heckler like that, where you're like, I could refute the claim, we could spend some time talking about that, because maybe it's a really common misconception about the subject matter, and that's really useful for everybody. Or you can ban it because you're like, dude, there's no value of you talking. Like that's like, no, the moon is not a hologram, stop. Like it's like you'll have that kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, make fun of it for a moment, move on.
Yeah, it's just something I see that's not unique to educational streams, but more, it pops up more there.
Yeah, no, constantly.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm the game lawyer Waylon. I want to start streaming about entertainment law and helping out board game developers, video game developers, people who are my clients. When people come to me asking for content in the sort of demos that I've tried to do privately before starting a stream, starting Discord, many people ask me to address legal takes that other streamers have put out way larger than myself. And so going to the question of disinformation, how do you correct another streamer without starting beef with them? Because I'm way too easily doxxed to get into that.
You're not going to be able to avoid that, like it's React content, and that's what viewers love that, And so whoever's coming in and being like, react to this, and then you react and they're going to clip it and then go to this person, and, you might catch some strays because of it.
Yeah,
it's your choice, right?
You're going to get people that are going to get upset at you from that other community, but you're also going to get people from that other community like, no, he's right. Yeah. It's like that's just how that's going to go. And it's totally fine to have that, but do understand you might have a moderation moment for a little bit. Much larger community, it happens.
It's taken me so long because I've had to get myself as secure as possible before the potential negative things.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it could also be like within the tone too. Like I agree with everything they said, but if you go about it being like, oh, well, I can't believe they would think that, it's like, oh, okay, you're stirring the pot there. But if you're like, oh, I can see why they would assume this because this, and this, but with my with my degree, whatever, like, this is actually how it is. So hopefully, you know, this can help them understand it or something, right? Like, come from a uplifting perspective of like, I would like to help this person, you know, unless that's not your content vibe, but.
Right,
I mean, you could dunk on them, but that's you.
True. It's like, you could be like, well, sorry, that was ass. You shouldn't have said that. But it's the intent. If you're malicious and that's what you're trying to be, that's on you.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much.
Hi, so a little bit of a tangent question. Learning is a skill that you learn. Teaching is a skill you learn. Learning as you're teaching a subject seems like another skill on top of that. Also, the amount of time that you have to put into become a content creator, gain an audience, just seems there's a lot to that. So the question is, with all that in mind, is there a sense of like burnout that ever happens? And if you guys have like any like any like examples of if you ever like experienced burnout, like how did you like process that and like push through or step back so that your content doesn't lose its focus?
Oh man, who here has experienced burnout? Okay, yeah, I mean, it happens in streaming, it happens in your job, it happens in anything, any aspect of life that you just spend a lot of time doing. You know, I think you're not gonna be able to avoid burnout, but there's things that you can do to mitigate it. I think, you know, being able to have more flexibility in what you're doing, change it up every now and then, and, you know, just be able to pace yourself. And, you know, one thing we talked about is like, this is an ongoing thing, right? There's no end. You become Twitch partner, and that's not the end, right? You still have to keep doing the thing. And I think that's why Moo talks so much about like following your passion, because it's so much easier to talk and create content about something that you truly love. So I think that's like a really fundamental thing.
If you didn't catch the burnout panel I was on yesterday, a big
missed it,
takeaway,
yeah.
Oh, it's all good. I have a QR code if you want to scan it for stuff.
Absolutely,
but, a big takeaway is like setting strong boundaries, and do not like work all the time, because it can be exhausting. Like streaming in and of itself, I love, it's great, but the burnout comes when I'm not having fun or when I don't take time for myself outside of streaming at all, so.
I think it's the biggest thing is if the check engine light is on and you don't pay attention to it, you're going to burn out. Right? That's just how that's going to go. And it's, for me, like I don't think I've experienced burnout in a very long time. Like and it's because anytime I'm like, oh, this feels a little bit bad, I'm going to take a day, whatever it's going to be, right? You have to do that maintenance before it becomes a problem, not when you're in the problem, because then it's so hard to dig out. Yeah.
Listen to your body. It'll tell you.
Yeah. You'll be like, I'm too tired to stream today. Good, sleep.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like
Thank you guys, and thank you for your content and your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Slice. Mr. PirateSoftware, your shorts have helped me strategize around several things that I would have run into, and I think I'm starting to see some improvement because of it.
Hell yeah.
One of the things that I've been trying to put together is I make videos that are educational about aircraft and military aircraft and aerospace engineering on YouTube, but I want to translate that onto Twitch content, and I'm trying to figure out how to deal with the barrier of I'm not as funny on Twitch as I am on YouTube.
To be honest with you, you won't be as funny on Twitch until you sit on Twitch for a long time. It's live content and static content, very different. I've talked to a number of different creators who are like YouTube primary, right? And that's what they do. And they're like, how do you go live? Like, I don't know how to do that. I can't do this outside of a script. And I'm like, I can't do it on a script, man. Like, all of our YouTube content is just me talking on Twitch, and then like we cut it. Because like I can't sit down and do that. It's really weird for me. So I think they're very, very different skills, and you have to kind of immerse yourself in it. And I think if you're doing that kind of content, that's cool. I haven't seen a lot of that on Twitch. You should get on there and just be like, hey, does anyone want to talk about this? Or I'm just going to talk about this subject to a room of none for a little while until people find it. And if you advertise that up on your YouTube channel, because you said you've already been making those videos, like people will find you. You know, and that's kind of a cool niche. I think you should do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the value of like doing that live aspect on Twitch, because there is that like understanding that it is live and it's not going to be scripted, you know, obviously. So, you know, being able to kind of like separate like the professional scripted videos versus like my live version, maybe just like, you know, think about how you want to do it. We talked about a lot of different ways that you can do live educational content. What makes the most sense for you, and you know, does it align with your YouTube content, or do you want to like experiment with some new ways? And would any of that be valuable back onto your YouTube channel?
I would also say just be yourself. And once again, I don't mean to sound like repetitive, but enjoy what you're doing and like just make sure you're having fun and like don't feel like you have to hold a part of your personality back because it's like, too much or that you have to like ramp it up too much. Just be you and do what you enjoy.
All right, so depending on time for y'all, we have time for these last two, unfortunately. I'm sorry. Just
I'm good.
stick around. But if you guys are good, get these last two here.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm happy to answer questions like afterwards too.
Okay.
I'll be
All
around.
right. I let us go over, but we can't go too far over.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I recognize that I struggle with sometimes is doubting the value of something that I initially think I want to share. Like, is it going to make a difference? Is it really going to help someone educationally? And at the same time, I recognize that the idea of helping others or helping people either avoid errors or maybe something works differently in like a new build of Godot. I use Godot now. Helps to go. That could help someone. So I'm kind of in the middle of this, trying to reframe how I experience certain things, and I'm willing. And what I've also found helpful is that hearing stories from other people, such as yourselves, go, yeah, I've had an experience like that. It also kind of helps normalize that and give me things to connect. So I'm curious if you'd be willing to share how you might have had some experience where maybe you had some doubt or something, but you reconnected with maybe purpose and where the value comes from. And
Yeah. I mean, I struggle with this all the time, and I've been doing this for 10 years. I've worked with creators. I've helped creators get partner, and I'm still like dealing with imposter syndrome. And I think like just understanding that you're going to have that at every level of your journey, and being able to come to events or go to where your community is, have community meetups, and just like TwitchCon is such a great just place to kind of reaffirm what you're doing is good and you're doing good things, and being able to hear that support and maybe even asking for that support. I think that's another hard thing that we don't do is like we get a lot of positive comments, but it's like the one negative comment that like sticks with us, right? So like I think being able to like talk to your community and kind of like get that support from them to just like, hey, like has anyone like had a positive experience? Have just kind of like open that discussion up when you're feeling kind of like, am I even making a difference? Because you probably are.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we do is, chat moves so fast on my stream, so I do miss messages. I try to read them as quickly as I can. But what the moderators have been doing is they take all the like really positive messages, all the ones that they can see, and they put them in a channel for me, so that I know that that's actually happening.
That's
Whether I miss it or
That's
not. Yeah.
That's one of the sweetest damn things I've ever heard. Actually.
We have they clip them all, and like I have this whole channel of like, oh man, like it's so if I do miss them, I get to go read them later.
Yeah, you can go back and whenever you're feeling down and
It's a secret channel.
That's the first time. That's the first time I've heard that, and I'm gonna steal and make. I'm gonna make everybody do that.
It's nice, man.
One of my mods has been doing that too, and it's really amazing. And it's nice when they tag you in chat, so you make sure you don't like miss that message too. I had something to add. Oh, I also struggle with like confidence and everything too. And for me, I try to talk myself up, say I'm making a difference, even if it is a difference in one person's life. If I made someone sharply exhale air out of their nose and not quite laugh, that's a win, okay? Like,
win.
And I try, and it's just having a positive impact in someone's life. Like they don't always say, hey, you really made my day, but you might have. So like keep that in mind, and just like keep pushing the content and everything out there too.
be proud of what you're making. If you're proud of it, then you're going to make a difference.
True.
And if you're not proud of it, you have a goal.
Yes.
I would also say, when your community says something nice to you, really internalize that and know that they're saying it because they mean it. And having some really amazing and great streamer friends helps too. Like my buddies have definitely had my back and lifted me up when I felt like I was
people
worthless.
that understand how
I think
it
it's-
works.
I need people to sit me down and be like, Moo, NASA's on your panel this year. You did a creator camp. Okay, and it we get in our heads, and sometimes we need a little check from a friend, and that's great.
Yeah, it's always going to be one of those things. It's really easy to just discount the positivity of other people. It's really easy to. You're like, that guy's lying. I tricked him. Whatever it's going to be, and you have to look at your own stuff and be like, wait, maybe they're right.
Yeah.
There's enough people saying the same thing. You're not tricking them all. So.
One of my favorite, most recent comments was, "Hey, this didn't suck," and I was like, "You know what? Thank you." And so I was like, "Yeah, it didn't." So yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it is up there. There you go.
That's close. So I'm a variety streamer, and you all seem to be rather experts in your chosen fields. Whether, like you said before, whether you have a degree or not, you're quite good at what you're doing now, and even the topics of what you're doing. My stream is actually built on encouraging others to start late in life. You start a new skill, you start a new just hobby, because by the time you get to an adult, you feel like you should already know. And so I actually stream things I don't know how to do. But it seems like on Twitch platform, and for most people, they're craving an expert to give them the okay to start, to give them like advice, tutorials. So I'm wondering, for a lot of people who are just now starting, or maybe for myself, that's my whole goal of, I'm going to mess up, but most people are wanting an expert to say, this is how you do it. I don't know how to engage with these people, to kind of stay and say the journey with me.
One idea I just had was like, if you collaborate with people who maybe are kind of experts and bring them on your stream and like learn from them, I think could be really inspiring and like really uplifting.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think like also when you do achieve a milestone, you learn something new, you have an aha moment, like, you know, like this is all about your experience and making sure you're talking out loud and like you're sharing these thoughts that you're having, and then being able to like milestone these as well. Like, you know, when you can go back, when you started a new skill, you look back 6 months and you're like, wow, like, I mean, look at where I was and look at where I'm at now. And I think if you can, you know, kind of have that in a library, like a, you know, YouTube or something, then you can point people into where your progress is. You know, you can see you have learned things, and you know, I think that makes it easier for a new person to follow along because they have that opportunity to catch up and compare now versus before.
I love that. Yeah, showing off the progress and everything.
Yeah, I also get people to come to my stream that are like, am I too old? You know, I can't do this, am I too old? And I'm like, dude, go look at WoW Grandma. Has anyone here ever seen WoW Grandma?
Yes.
Yeah, she's awesome. Like, I'm like, that's cool as hell. And I was like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what your age is. If you're going and trying new stuff. It's funny, too, because I get the flip side of that. They're like, am I too old to be a programmer? I'm 20. I was like, dude, you're not even old enough to feel ways about stuff. Like, what is it? It's ridiculous. So, like,
you just
no,
learn how to drive.
There's no barrier to entry on this kind of stuff. And it's one of those things is no one sees... When you see an artist's art, you're like, wow, that looks amazing. You know, you must have been born with the talent. They don't see the like years of grueling drawing hands, and it's a practice. It's time. You know, always.
Thank
I
you.
really love that. Yeah, I want to watch your stream now. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the progress is because I noticed that there's a big disparity between 14-year-olds or whatever watching, and then they're like, I want to get to this, and they think they have to be perfect at 14 years old. They haven't even hit puberty yet sometimes. So
The perception of adulthood and having it all together is a scam.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a scam.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, it
It's
is.
100% a scam. Yeah.
Well, I mean, for Moohoodles, MEIBC, MEIBC. Sorry. But yeah, also thank you, PirateSoftware, for the game jam.
Yeah. Next one's in January.
And really, just thank you all so much for doing this panel. Thank you for taking your time to be here. I know we did go late. I was like, I want them to answer as many questions as they can. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here, and thank you all for being here as well.
Thank you, Ray.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let's just because I'm sure there's gonna want to be more questions and pictures, but let's go out in the hallway so that we can be like, yeah, look, we finished, and we turn the room over. So thank you all so much.